Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette still with us here. Last night, Indiana kicked off their 124th collegiate basketball season, Dylan, and a little shaky. The Eagles and from Florida Gulf Coast, which ironically I have to go to a wedding this weekend that is right next to Fort Myers, which is where they're from. So just ironic to me for no reason other than that. Man, were you at the game last night? I can't remember.
I was, yeah.
I thought you were.
To answer your question from earlier, I was at West Lafayette on Monday, and I was for the Purdue game, and I was in Bloomington last night.
Yeah, I didn't. I was setting up our first pregame show at Hoosier Hanks East, and so I was late getting to the game, and then had to jet out. I actually didn't stay for the postgame presser for this one, but so there was just jumping around too much. But man, I was a little surprised how they were not able to fix the closeouts in the second half on these 3-point shooters. They continued to get, they weren't, the difference is, think back in Archie Miller and then PUI Fort Wayne and the Indiana State game. Those guys were just lost. I mean, they were literally lost 5, 6, 7 feet away from the guy. This was more about overhelping and not making the decision to get back out on the shooter quick enough. That is something that I think will be fixed by Mike Woodson. I think that's just an adjustment and understanding, but they've done an incredible job of defending the interior, and Kellel Ware is a presence. And I mean, that sounds like something stupid and obvious to say. Of course he is. He's 7'2" or whatever. But on the postgame show last night, I talked about how he's sneaky. Because it's like he almost baits you, because if there's an offensive player coming in, but another defender has him, that player's mainly worried about this defender and getting by him and getting a shot up. And then you forget about this big old, it's like me having a broomstick in my hand, a boom afterwards. He kind of comes out of nowhere and just engulfs balls like the Cookie Monster, man.
Yeah, he was really, really good last night. There was some worries that Indiana's defense the last couple of years was so good in the interior, not because IU was so great as a team, but because Trace Jackson-Davis was able to erase so many mistakes. And I think that might have been true, but Kellel Ware can erase just as many mistakes and maybe more. He's just so long in the interior. It's just really, he affects a lot of shots. He's going to block a lot of shots. He has good timing. I think when it comes to the 3-pointers, I looked back at the tape. 7 of the 13 3-pointers were a result of either miscommunication or, as you said, overhelping. I do think the overhelping can be fixed pretty easily. Because Xavier Johnson overhelped and gave up a 3 last night. Like, it's not just the inexperienced players that were doing it. So that's something that needs to be fixed, and I think it will be. The bigger problem, and Mike Woodson talked about this after the game, was there are times where there's miscommunications on switches and guys don't know who they're supposed to be going to. And that led to at least 3 or 4 that I counted open threes. And some of them didn't go down, right? There were more that could have gone down that they had open shots.
They missed in the second half.
Yeah.
They missed like 5 in a row, and 4 of them were just wide open. And I'm like, oh my God, how they were
right. And so that's going to be an issue going forward. You have to be able to fix that. And Mike Woodson said it after the game. He basically said it was mostly the 3 young guys. It was Mackenzie Mbako, it was CJ Gunn, and it was Caleb Banks. And so that's why he didn't play Mackenzie Mbako for the last 15-34 of the game. He basically took him out and was like, we can't play you right now because you don't know exactly where you're supposed to be going on defense often enough to be on the floor. And so,
and it was probably better for him to be sitting on the sideline next to a coach with a coach pointing out, see that right there? Watch this. See this? You can get a lot more done like that.
Yeah, but Mackenzie Mbako is a starter. He is going to start. He is going to play big minutes. They need to get him up to speed as soon as they can here. Banks and Gunn, they're coming off the bench. They have a little more time to get up to speed. It's less worried about them, although it's a little bit concerning that they are sophomores and haven't gotten this yet. But I do think you need to get Mbako up to speed as soon as possible. Because we can see he has a gifted offensive game, right? He deserves to be out there. He needs to be out there. It's just a question of, can he play defense enough to make that palatable for IU? I don't think it was an example of him not trying. I think if you look at it wasn't an effort thing, right? It's kind of, he's a freshman. He's still trying to figure out, where do I go in this situation? If they're switching, who do I follow? Right. I think there's still you can see as he's on the floor, like if you kind of slow it down a little bit, you can kind of see the gears in his brain working. And basically it's moving fast for him right now. And I know that happens to a lot of freshmen. Right. And so I think the question now is, how quickly can you get the game slowed down for him? And that's going to be the most important piece of Mike Woodson's coaching here over the next couple of weeks as Indiana gets deeper into the season, is helping him slow the game down.
Well, and he said last night, I've got some work to do.
Yeah.
And like CJ Gunn is a great basketball player, a good shooter. His shooting has not shown itself yet. And I think partly because his defense is not where it needs to be, so that's creating a little havoc inside his mind, because when you get beat or you don't do something, that's something you're thinking about. Also, Todd made a great point last night that when you get into the game, you need to do some things. You need to show why you're supposed to be in the game, and that includes hitting some shots, which in turn will sometimes lead you to force things and force bad shots. Todd pointed out that 2 of CJ's shots were just bad shots. And I'm not getting on CJ. He's a great kid, a great athlete, a player, and I think that it'll come around. It just, the game is so fast, and it's not like, the guys you're bringing in are weak sisters, man. You're bringing in the elite talent, so it just always stays at a high level. Caleb Banks, little surprised on him defensively, because that seemed to be something that he brought to the table last year. But I'm thinking now maybe that's just more hustle and effort, which is great, but it also has to be geared in the right place. And I guess he's just not there either. And you have to play both ends of the floor, or your offense doesn't much matter unless you're just knocking the damn lights out.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks are going to have a role on this team, right? They are going to play minutes, and they are going to contribute. And I think they both can contribute. I think they're both very good players. It is just a question of getting them up to speed on the defensive end. And that's what you need. For guys like that who come off the bench, the best way that they can get themselves involved in the game is being active on the defensive end. And from there, your offense can flow. Right. And I think you get a tip, get a nice defensive stop, get a good contest on a shot that misses, and then get up the floor and get out in transition, that kind of thing. And I think that once you start doing that, you just become so much more confident on the offensive end as well. To your point, Jim, about how things just slow down in your mind, and your mind isn't as cluttered, and you're not thinking about the other end of the floor, and you can just go shoot. Because I think CJ Gunn especially, you're right. He can shoot the lights out of the ball. There's no question about that. We see it in warmups. He's knocking down shot after shot after shot, and it looks pure. It looks natural. I do think he's a better shooter than he's shown at IU, and I do think he's thinking a little bit too much right now when he goes up for jumpers. I think that is related to the defensive end.
No doubt about that. And once his shot starts falling, this is a dude that, I said, I go back to high school. I go back to his senior year. I remember his first game back off of an injury. He had 18 points in the fourth quarter. This is a guy that can hit the shots, especially once he gets comfortable. And there's just a lot going on in their minds right now, because it's not just, hey, let's come down and put up 85 points and win this game. No, you have to play defense, or your ass is going to be on the pine. because it is so integral in what the team is trying to accomplish. Kel Ware is it's already proving to be I looked at him and I'm like, man, he's awfully thin. And I was really worried. And we haven't seen him play big guys yet, but he's not getting pushed around. He's able to play in there and use his length, which is athletic length, is different than, say, Zach Edey. Zach Edey is 7'4" and 1,000 pounds. You're not going to move him, but you can out athlete him. And that's what I think that you have to do to a Zach Edey. You have to either front him and frustrate him, or you just simply have to out athlete him. And I think that that's something that Kel'el Ware can do, especially if he's not guarding him from the backside or whatever. We'll see how that goes. But
and I will say one thing on Kel'el Ware. We heard all offseason about, there's questions about his motor. Mike Woodson said he got a reputation at Oregon for being lazy and he needs to shed that and all this. I didn't see any issues with his motor last night. I thought he played really, really hard. I looked at it and I was like, he's chasing rebounds. He's doing what they need him to do on offense. I thought last year at Oregon, he fell in love with the three-pointer a little bit too much, trying to kind of be the perimeter guy, basically be Kevin Durant. And I think last night he did exactly what IU needed him to do on offense, which was plant yourself under the rim and clean up everything around it. And he did that. Like Kel'el Ware last night, if he puts together 30 performances like that, he's going in the lottery. I don't really think there's any question about that because he played hard and he played well.
Absolutely. And then, of course, Gabe Cupps. I have not even mentioned his name yet, hardly, for good reason, because I didn't want the quotes to go nuts here. There's already been a ton. He's the next Trey Galloway, but better. He's not only going to be a glue guy for Indiana, which that's kind of a goofy term, but he can handle the ball. He can shoot the ball. He can facilitate the ball. He does not get rattled. He looks comfortable now. And I'm not saying he's perfect, not going to make mistakes. He is. He will. But he looks comfortable. And that is so important, because if you're comfortable right now, you're less likely to make mistakes. You're more likely to do the things that you're supposed to do. You're more likely to learn. And he is in that position. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that he's going to be into the starting lineup. I'm saying he's not going to be in the starting lineup. That's not going to happen. He's not going to replace someone like Trey Galloway. I don't care if he outscores him. It's not about that. I've already mentioned that having him come off the bench, what a jewel. What a thing that is to have. How many teams have something like that? That's what you want. Trey Galloway did take a few more shots last night than I thought he would. As a matter of fact, he was the freaking leading scorer of the game.
7 of 9 shooting. Like he took more shots, and they were good shots. They were in the flow of the offense. I thought Trey Galloway played relatively well last night.
The only 2 shots he missed, one was a 3-pointer, which he would have never taken last year, which I'm like, even when he took the shot and missed, I'm like, who cares? He needs to take that. He has to take that shot. Yeah. It was not one that was just wide open. He got the ball, he was set, and he took it. He missed it. Big deal. But he hit a 3 as well early on. I thought that was going to light him up, get him going. But anyway, he does not look uncomfortable taking the shot.
No. And he seems like he knows that he is going to have to be a scorer for this team. And he was the one of all of IU's guards. He was the one that was able to get into the lane and create with the most regularity. Like he would get in the lane, he'd kick out. Like that's how Kel'el Ware got his 3. His 3-pointer was Galloway drove into the lane, crossed over, and then kind of threw a pass behind his back to Ware for an open 3. Like that was one of the few shots IU had during the game that was really wide open because Galloway made a play, and he was able to get into the lane with regularity, and they need him to do that because that's what he was doing on a more minor basis at the end of the 2021-22 season. He didn't do it quite as much last year. He was more of a spot up guy last year, and I think they need him to be more aggressive this season.